we're going into a food security conversation. And our live streams are up, YouTube, Facebook, and on X. Our audience on KTN continue to say good morning and joining us in these conversations today. All right, so at this point, we're going to be the International Day of Awareness of Food Loss and Waste. It's today, and that's where we are right now. Professor Jane Ambuko is a horticulturalist and post-harvest specialist, University of Nairobi. She joins us this morning. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. Happy to be here today.
Good to have you back in the studio. Always a pleasure. And let's look into some of these things. Dr. Frankline Otiende Award is a senior lecturer at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University of Science and Technology, as well as a researcher at AfriFood Links Project. Good morning.
Good morning.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Thank you for joining us this morning as we get into things. Even as we get into this conversation, the International Day of the Awareness of Food Loss. Okay. There's a day for everything, but unfortunately, there's too much loss of food, and probably this is an everyday conversation as opposed to just a one-day conversation. So we're going to get into it today. Yeah. Before we do, Dennis is taking us to Côte d'Ivoire, and we'd like to hear your interpretation of the proverb that he'll share.
Côte d'Ivoire. Some of the things that are well known for is rubber. They produce rubber. So if you drove here, that tire perhaps has part of Côte d'Ivoire in it. If you like chocolate, cocoa comes from this country. 40% of the world cocoa comes from Côte d'Ivoire, and it's a country that borders Liberia, Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso, Ghana, and the Atlantic Ocean. But let's go to the proverb today. The chameleon looks in front and behind before walking. The chameleon looks in front and behind before walking. Ladies, go first. How would you interpret that?
Okay, the chameleon looks in front and behind before walking.
Yes.
Means checking for danger on both sides before you move. Yeah.
That's your interpretation.
Would I say that the same way, say, before you cross the road, you look left and right?
Perhaps, yeah.
So you don't know what is lurking behind, or, someone who's following you, who's after you, or in front, what danger lies ahead. Probably so, just being safe.
Right.
Probably.
All right. Dr. How would you interpret that?
First, I love animals, so that's how they are. And it's just the unique nature of chameleon. But in terms of interpreting it, I would say the chameleon wants to be aware of its environment. So he has to scan before he moves, trying to assess threats or anything that might be worthy of his or its not. So just situational awareness. Where am I and what is happening around me? Who is there?
All right.
Yes.
So just being careful in every step that you make.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. So that makes it just in terms of also related to us as you walk. Remember where you're coming from and where you're going. Just be aware.
Indeed.
Exactly.
Right. So it's the International Day of the Awareness of Food Loss and Waste. Okay, there's an international day. I would want to understand, first of all, why is there an international day for this thing, which happens to be an everyday occurrence? We'll start with you, Prof. Well, no, that we're both Prof. Professor Ambuko, we'll start with you in terms of why. Why is there a day?
Why there's a day? There's a day for, like you said, there's a day for everything. There's a day for, I saw yesterday there was a day for contraception. There's a day for, so I think the reason we have a day for something is to amplify, the issue and call to action. So like the International Day of Awareness of Food Loss and Waste was put in place in 2019 by the UN. Now the UNGA is happening in New York. So they noticing or acknowledging the importance of food loss and waste in the sustainability of our food systems. That's why this day was put in place to make sure that we, first of all, we raise awareness about the problem, because it seems that people are actually not aware that we have food loss and waste as a problem in our food system. So it is, first of all, raising awareness so that people know it's a problem, and then call to action. Yeah, because again, it's a problem. Who needs to act? What do they need to do? So when this day is observed, and it's observed globally, yeah. So as we'll be doing our local thing in Kisumu, but it is being observed locally. So that time, people showcase action towards food loss and waste, but also is a call to action for government, for private sector, for research and academia like myself, for consumers. So it is actually a day. So during that day, there is usually a lot of activities, so that, so when we do it, it's our hope that those who didn't know that we lose so much food or waste so much food get to know that it is actually happening, and there is a responsibility that each one of us can do something about it. Whether you're whichever sector you are, is actually is a day for call to action also. Not so that we always say that serikali, government, whatever, but all of us have a role to play. So during that day, we usually raise awareness, let people know how their own actions are contributing to the problem, but two, how they can act as individuals or as institutions or organizations to actually address the problem. Because we have, under the SDGs, we have a target that has been set to halve food waste by 2030. Yeah, for us to get there,
to have food waste come to an end,
as in to halve, So from the current losses, halve it by the year 2030. How do we get there? There has to be collective action by all of us. So that's why this day is important.
Okay.
That we raise awareness and call to action.
So what is food loss and waste?
Food loss and waste. I would start with food loss, basically from the farm to the retail shop. Food gets lost through various means, some through natural disasters, some through accidents, some through pests, diseases, poor storage, poor preservation. So all the losses that happen between the farm and the retail shop, we refer to them as food loss. But then once it reaches the retail shop where the consumer now buys it and goes with it to the house, the losses that happen in the hands of the consumer, we refer to those as food waste. So we are wasting food. Before, we lost food. Yes.
But how are you losing food from farm to retail? What happens? Does some fall along the way? Do we lose some mangoes? Do some potatoes go rotten? What are we talking about when we're talking about food loss exactly?
Simply means that food that now does not reach the point where the consumer can have the opportunity to buy it. So some of these get lost because there's late harvesting, or somebody has harvested them prematurely. So they will not be able to get to the market and be bought because some consumers are wise enough to notice that these are not ripe well. Some get destroyed because of pests, monkeys, rodents, destroy them in the field. Some are destroyed by natural disasters, perhaps flood, drought. Some get destroyed because of a poor storage facilities at home, in our farms. Some because of accidents. Maybe a transporting vehicle has had an accident. There's delay with the food on the road. Some start getting rotten. Some is because of packaging, transportation containers. Some of us don't use specialized containers to transport food. So you just keep them in the transportation van. Those that are below have the pressure of those that are up. They get spoiled. You go to the factory, inefficient processing methods. We lose some in the process. So there are many. These are just a few. Prof can add some.
But also one of the things we have found out in our studies is a lack of market.
Okay.
Yeah. So because like Franklin said, food loss is what happens between farm and retail. I don't know, in Kenya we have had these very depressing stories of a farmer has invested in producing tomatoes or cabbage, and then there's no market. Yeah? And then you find at the farm level, I was listening to a story of farmers who they couldn't harvest the cabbage because there's no market. Yeah? They couldn't harvest the tomatoes because there's no market. Yeah? So you see, that will be farm level losses. You can imagine a farmer who has invested so much resources and time to produce tomato. And tomato is one of the most difficult crop to produce. So when you see that the tomatoes were not harvested, we have seen scenarios where actually the farmer gave the tomatoes to cows.
To cows, yeah.
And how do you produce tomato? and give it to cows, or cabbage and give it to cows. Lack of market. Sometimes the prices are low. Yeah, there's a story of farmers. The traders wanted to pay them 1 shilling per cabbage. How do you even sell a cabbage for? So they prefer to give it to the animals, because even the cost of it doesn't make sense. It's an insult to the farmer. So lack of market has been one of the challenges that we have found in studies that causes a lot of food loss. That is especially for the farmers.
So let's look at food loss, especially from the point of the farm and the entire channel before it gets to the retailer. So you need proper infrastructure, you need proper storage facilities. Farmers need to have the knowledge in terms of when to harvest and when not to harvest, how to package these things, and that would come in terms of the standards that have been set to ensure that all these boxes are ticked. You'd go to, say, the Scandinavian countries and you'd find there are standards on the handling of food, how it is harvested, how it is transported, how it is stored. And these are things that you'd find those governments have invested in. Back home, the reason why you find even the tomatoes get destroyed is because access roads are not there. It rained, it is muddy, vehicles are stuck. So then how do we bring these conversations together with the government, the farmers, to understand the need of investing in these areas so that we avoid food loss? Because one area would be like what Burkina Faso did. Put up a tomato plant, let's crush it, let's have a puree and store them and sell them. Are these conversations that we're having to avoid food loss?
Yes, I think the first point is to be able to recognize these gaps and to design interventions that would work within our local context. So government has its part to play, especially when it comes to infrastructure, better roads. In NGOs may have specific interest, but may range from awareness creation, capacity building, and even trying to stimulate certain industries to pick up these business opportunities that will save food from getting lost and waste. But the point is that we have to recognize first that these are challenges that we have, and we have to design appropriate interventions. Government to take its part. Some things may only be done by governments, policies, infrastructure, too heavy roads, and no NGO will do that. So once we recognize this and lay it up down, we can find specific partners or organizations or government to take which part. Areas will require collaboration. Yes, some areas.
Okay. Well, can we stay on food loss for a minute? We'll get to food waste, which is, from what we understand, that from a retail perspective, that what we eat in our homes and all of that, that's now when we look into food waste. But food loss for me is not a 2025 issue. Food, for goodness sake, there's a whole international day dedicated to this thing, right? So that means it's been around for a while.
Sure.
Right? We've talked about food loss forever. That we can't get food from farm to market because of transportation issues, poor road network, etc., etc. But we know this. We've known it.
Yes.
It's been there. We talk about it every year. That we say people are feeding tomatoes to cows, or that we are pouring. There was a milk. We are pouring milk into farms, or that we have maize that it sits and then it goes rotten because there's a glut in the market. It's bizarre to me.
It is.
And that these interventions that we keep talking about and say we must have interventions. People must come together. They must collaborate. Governments must do 1, 2, 3. But why are we still saying that they must? Why isn't it happening right now? The food loss, and I don't know what the percentage is, and maybe Professor Ambuko, maybe we can talk about the numbers that we're seeing in terms of how much food is actually lost from farm to market because of these issues. Maybe if we heard those numbers, then it would spur us on into saying perhaps something needs to happen. What are we looking at?
So first of all, the numbers. Again, there's a challenge there because nobody's looking for data. Is an expensive business. So currently the data that we're quoting is actually data, a bit of it is outdated. But as of now, we are quoting the FAO studies of 2023, where we're talking about like Franklin saying, food loss, which is between harvest and retail, we are quoting it at 13%. So 13% of the food that is produced goes to waste. That is between harvest and retail. And then from retail to the household, which is what we categorize as food waste, we're talking about 19%. So not that fact that there's more food waste than food loss. And remember, food waste, Franklin forgot to say, some of it is avoidable.
Yes.
Most of it is avoidable. In fact, according to the UNEP report of, I think, 2021, 60% of the food waste happens in your house. Yes? So, as we talk like this, as you've asked, the numbers, because people now are talking about data-guided action. Yes, evidence-based policies, right? So we say, currently the data, remember the data I've just quoted are estimates, yeah? So sometimes it's hard to convince government, whether it's county or national, to invest in food loss and waste, which is a serious problem. Remember, 19% or 13%, if you put that in numbers, in terms of, for example, Kenya, what does it mean for our GDP, for example? I know some people have done that estimate. What does it mean for, so when we lose, we import food. Does it surprise you that Kenya has to import maize to plug a deficit? Are we not able to produce? It shocks you sometimes we're even importing mangoes, tomatoes. Why are we doing that? Yes, we produce. So the thing is, like you've asked, evidence to show that this is a problem. It is a social problem. Yes, it is an economic problem. It is an environmental problem. Data, again, from UNEP shows that food waste alone, contributes 10 to 12% of our greenhouse gases, which is a contributor to climate change and all that. But you see, these are estimates. So for us, one of the things that we are working towards is generating evidence that can then stimulate action, investment towards, because when you put it in numbers, yes, in numbers, if I told you, for example, that every Kenyan loses 99 kilos of food every year, you alone, can you put that in numbers, in terms of money? So for the thing we are trying to get to is, can we translate food loss and waste into numbers that make sense to policy action? Whether it is, if I'm going to convince those who are doing climate action and say, hey, food loss and waste contributes 10% of the greenhouse gases. Can we invest in food waste reduction?
Donald Trump told us that.
Something like that.
Donald Trump told us the other day that
there's no
climate change is a con. So, now the world might be shifting away from that.
When you talk about numbers, I've just done something real quick. I've just looked at how much potatoes we produced in 2025, and it's at 1.35 tons. So when you talk about 19% of that, that is 256,500 tons that is lost.
Okay, so this is the conundrum, and I'm to understand that we're still operating in a country where we're told, because this is not a hunger conversation.
No.
This is a food loss and waste conversation. But we're still told that within the same boundaries of this country that there's hunger to some alarming rates. That we're still soon, the short rains are coming, they're on their way, and maybe here in some parts already in the country. But then after that will come a drought. And then we will be told that there's no food, and that 23 out of the 47 counties are on the brink of starvation because of the terrible drought. We're going to be told, we can almost predict that is what is going to happen, because weather patterns have shown us that that's just how the cycle is. Extreme weather followed by another extreme weather pattern. How is it possible that you can throw away milk? So we're not thinking about, by now, these collaborations and people coming together, we should now have large-scale dehydrators for milk. So that you have powdered milk, because Kenya is a huge producer of milk. You have powdered milk so that when there is famine or when there is drought, you can take care of that. We should be able to desiccate maize and have it in dry form. We should be able to dry potatoes and vegetables and keep them in dry form at a national scale to feed the nation when there is hunger. I don't understand how we're able to operate in such a paradox when there is excess and such loss. 99 kilograms times 55 million people is a hell of a lot of food. And then now we are saying people are hungry. It blows my mind. I don't understand. Why are we keep reporting, but why are we not doing? What's the problem, really?
I think that is one of the reasons why this day was established. 2019 is just a few years back. So we see these things happening, but for you now to be able to zoom in and stimulate action, you need now to start talking more about these things. So this is one step in that direction. So, for example, our project with the various partners that we're working with, for example, PHRC, WISE, we have University of Nairobi, RETRAC, Food and Land Use Coalition, County Government of Kisumu, Kisumu City, Food Bank in Kenya, World Resources Institute, KIA, and our university JOOUST. By creating this awareness action, we are looking at the point where we can have this conversation driven down. People lose waste. I don't think somebody sits down that I want to throw food. It is an unconscious thing that happens.
No, people are throwing food away. People are throwing milk into the street.
But they didn't plan
People
to throw it.
are giving tomatoes to cows.
Not by design, not by choice.
But they're hungry people.
Yes. So
I don't understand.
What we're trying to do is that though many people are not intentional in preserving food, by that lack of intentionality, they find food going to waste. So by being intentional, we'll be able to reduce some of this food. So by this awareness creation and creating this as an issue that needs to be focused on, we are already making the first step to resolving these problems. Rather than just sitting and we see it has been there for long.
Yes.
But we have never zoomed into it.
Yeah.
So, but isn't that the problem, Prof?
Yeah, okay.
That we've been looking and talking about this problem. We've been looking at the problem, waste 2019, 2020, waste 2021, waste.
Even
before that. I'm just going to 2019 so you don't feel so bad. Then now we come to 2022, 2023, 2024, and we're still saying waste. All of the organizations that we speak about who are working in collaboration, now we're just talking about it. How about some pressure that would actually have some things done?
Yes, that's why, remember, that's why I said the only way to pressure, we need to talk numbers, like real numbers. When I go to county government of Kisumu and tell them this is how big your problem is, contributing to the waste organic waste that you have to deal with, most of it is from food. So we need to translate that to numbers so that as we look at action towards food loss and waste, we're talking numbers, right? And that's what we're doing in Kisumu. So he forgot to mention that you said that food is going to waste while people who need it are suffering. Now, there's in the hierarchy of food waste reduction, there's something we call food distribution. So we say food that was meant for human consumption must be consumed by human. Anything else is waste, right? So we say, first of all, we need to prevent food loss and waste by doing things like you're saying, like when there's excess, turning the perishable like milk, tomatoes into what we call shelf-stable products, which can be used later, right? That is what we call prevention. But then where we have a situation where we have excess food, like you said, the milk, the tomatoes, the cabbage, we talk about food distribution, which is what one of the partners in this project called Food Bank is doing. We are doing a pilot in Kisumu to show what can be done. So that food that would otherwise go to waste in the markets in Kisumu can actually be rescued. Yeah? And that's what Food Bank is doing. Rescued, and they're rescuing from the market and feeding children. Okay. So you see, that is so the long-term goal is to show the impact of that intervention, because that's an intervention to reduce waste, so that others can actually see its action. If you're talking about, like the cabbage I talked about in Meru, it was going to waste. If there was a system to rescue that cabbage and feed it to people that need it, so we need systems that work, where we can see where there's surplus that would otherwise go to waste, have mechanisms to rescue it. And then make it available to people, because like you do the way you said, it is traumatic to see children. It is always on the news. Children like they are boiling some herbs to eat.
Stone.
Yet in the Yet in the same country, cabbages have been left in the market, or tomatoes are being fed to cows. So it's just making the system, the agri-food sector work, so that we know where there's surplus, where there's a need, and if people are doing that, like food banking is doing that, you see, we need a system that will support that action.
I'm thinking, sorry, and I just want to give this example because it's in my head at the moment, because sometimes when we think about that, that's when maybe one spurs us on and we put the information out there. Italy is a strip of geography in Western Europe. They have tomatoes all over the place in excess. They don't even have to plant them. They just sprout out of the ground. They realized this and they said, you know what? Can this thing? Because we can eat it, we can use it for our cuisine, but then it's in excess. So they make paste, and it's on Kenyan shelves. Italian tomatoes in cans, in paste, in tubes, in sachet, is on Kenyan shelves in the supermarkets. You see this thing we call sauerkraut. It's fermented cabbage. That's what the Germans have done with their cabbage, because it doesn't spoil. You ferment the thing and you can eat it for the year. My point is, there is something we can do.
Definitely.
But it appears that we're just not doing it, and it's like we are waiting for some big bell in the sky to be clanged before then we say, okay, can we? Because it is traumatic, Prof. The words that you use, that's what it is. That we actually have options of what we can do.
Sure.
But there's something, and I think that's what we're trying to have this conversation about, that what is that thing that's then stopping us from doing it? It's not for lack of food that Kenyans are hungry.
No.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So it's the same thing. Like I said, I mean, for us, you see just what you have painted. We know we have the solutions. Yeah. Like transforming the cabbage, the tomato into forms. It's not like we do not know. It's not even an Italian thing. We know. I come from.
We used to do it as Africans. We would sun dry our meat.
Exactly.
Fish would hang for months. It's dried. We
The
can
meat
eat it.
and
When
all
the
that.
meat is dried, we can eat. Potatoes are sliced and dried on rooftops. We have the methods. We don't do it.
So we have the traditional methods. We have now the improved methods. We do. So the thing, like you say, is just letting people, and this is part of why we have this conversation, that there's something that can be done. These are the solutions. But you see, these solutions have to be, targeted. Yes? You have to know, for example, if we are wasting tomatoes in, which is the largest tomato producing county in Kenya, there's Embu, there's also Kajiado, So what are the drivers of tomato wastage in Kajiado, for example, or Embu? And what are the solutions? Okay, so that is why we're talking. We've been doing one project with one of the partners here. It's called World Resources Institute. We started off with the mango value chain. We want to understand what are the drivers of wastage. What are the context appropriate interventions? Like you said, for example, if I go to Kilifi, we might just need to dry the mangoes.
Yes.
And then find market for dried mangoes. And Kenyans don't like dried mangoes. They haven't developed a taste for it. We actually dry mangoes for export.
Yes.
But we need to also ensure that we have dried vegetables too. When it rains, there will be excess leafy vegetables. One of the easiest ways to preserve those vegetables is to just solar dry them. But how many of us go to the supermarket to buy dried kales? Or dried manago? Have you?
Because you imagine, I do. Because I'm from a culture whereby we dry like things like bitter leaf or our local vegetables, because you can use them when they're not in season.
You see?
These are the traditional speak that we talk about.
Exactly.
But we have not developed in our minds that it's something that you can do for later.
Exactly.
And perhaps that's what we need to do. Develop it amongst people as an idea that can come to existence later.
So you see, drying of vegetables, fruits or whatever, these perishable products is a very easy, effective way to actually reduce wastage when there's excess. So we dry veggies, we export. We also need to dry and let Kenyans also know that, dry tomato is just as good as the fresh one. It's just that it's dehydrated. So we have those solutions. So there are many interventions, knowing the technologies to dry them properly to preserve the nutrients, but also raising awareness among consumers to actually be able to, they can utilize these dried products. They are as good as the fresh ones. They're just dehydrated. So there's a lot of interventions there's awareness creation about, these products, but also the solutions. So that's part of the work that we're trying to do, promote, those solar drying options, and also raising awareness to consumers about dried food being nutritious, just that it's dehydrated. Yeah.
What I did indicate is now this need for capacity building also, and availance of these technologies like solar dryers. Most people perhaps are afraid to dry their tomatoes because they don't have that technology. They have the sun, but they don't want it to also be contaminated by dust, flies. There are solar dryers. They should be made available easily. So they need to be this capacity building on these various methods: canning, solar drying, drying of vegetables, and know how to do it. And then we make it easy for the common man, for the common mwananchi to do it at home.
Yeah, even also cold storage, again, is one of the things you see at the market. If you walked in some of our markets, do you know the small scale traders? You see, at the end of the day, this produce that is left, you ask yourself, where does that produce go? Most of it is collected and thrown.
In fact, they leave them. Some of them just leave it on the streets.
Yeah, because it doesn't make sense to carry it back home. Yeah. So one of the things one of the projects that is being implemented in Kisumu is installation of a cold room at the market. You see, that is very targeted. So we are working with the APHRC under this project that is led by Frankline and JOOUST to see if we installed a cold room at a market. We started off with a fish market.
Yes.
Yeah. Would that help to reduce wastage in fish at the market? We've also tried to do that in another market. There's a project that we started off with under USAID, but it under Travis Desire. We had actually introduced a market at a cold room at a market, a vegetable fruits market. The idea is, at the end of a trading day, what is not sold, can it be kept and be, retrieved for sale tomorrow? Because for now, without cold room at the market, and given the small scale operation of our traders, there's a lot of wastage at the market.
So that stuff is being thrown away?
Yeah, most of it, you imagine a trader who has just brought a gunia of kales, and they sold half of it. Are they going to carry it home? Tomorrow it will be wilted and yellow. They can't sell. So the most rational thing for a trader to do is to leave it there to be collected as waste.
And you see, when you talk about the cold storage that you talk about, there's the new PIA that was launched recently by President William Ruto in Homa Bay County. And I remember a few years ago, I visited that same fish market, and fish was being thrown away because it's not been sold. So the fishermen will still come in the morning with fresh fish and we will sell that. Whatever remains, we throw it away, or you take it home and give it out. But as we speak right now, over 2,000 people show up because there are cold storage. There is proper pipeline on how that fish is being sold. But as we talk about access to markets as well, in assuring farmers that once you harvest, there is where this product will end. So farmers don't have to worry where my product will go. I will harvest because I know there is a direct pipeline on where this food will end. These are conversations that we should be having, that we should be discussing on a daily basis, but unfortunately they are just talks. For a very long time we've just been talking and not walking the talk. So then how do we change the mindset of duty bearers together with farmers and even us consumers to understand the importance of jumping on this conversation to save that which we have and to ensure that what you're talking about is being implemented? Because we'll talk all we want.
Yes. I would first indicate that at the household level, there are many things a household can do. I think it is UNEP report that reports that 60% of food gets wasted at the household level. Of course, this may vary from city to city. But at that household level, there is a lot that we can do as households to save food. That will drive in the sense of agency to conserve this food. Others, we might need more capital. But what I want to emphasize is that as a personal, individual level, that realization must occur, that losing food is losing money, and we cannot afford to lose food. We need to be intentional in preventing it. We need to be intentional in rescuing that food. And then if that awakening is there amongst us, perhaps it will be easier now to consolidate partners, consolidate resources, and achieve more to rescue this food. It is sad that at the moment there is only much talk, but we need to move to action. And we as AfriFood Links, through the various partners that I've mentioned, we are already doing that action on the ground in Kisumu, so that it can be seen that it can be done. And it can be replicated elsewhere.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you give us a few more examples about, because also we speak to policy, we speak to power, but then oftentimes we don't speak to ourselves.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that we are doing, maybe in more detail at home, that's contributing to waste? Because we've talked about loss quite some. What is contributing to food waste at home?
Yeah. So at home, I mean, like Franklin has quoted, and I've quoted before, that is a study has been done that each one of us loses 99 kilos per capita per year. So at home, and this is something that we said, even as government does the big things you have just mentioned, at individual level, how we plan our meals. We come, we all can see all of us come from traditional home setup where you just cook food. You don't kind of know how many people you're cooking for. In where I come from, it's like you don't measure food. If it's ugali, you just look at the people and and you put water on the pan, and it is, as long as there's flour, it's not easy. You just look at it, is the size of the sufuria that should limit the amount of the ugali you cook. It's not
ask how hungry they are.
You don't ask how hungry they are, or something like that. So measuring is not our thing, but we must start planning our meals, isn't it? We must start planning our meals. Know how many people you're cooking for, so that there isn't waste. I mean, you cook ugali, only half of it is eaten, and some people justify, the half will be eaten by chicken and all that. Okay, fine. It is a better use than the landfill. But did you cook ugali for
the chicken?
No. So we must start planning our meals to ensure that there's little waste at the end of a serving. That is first and foremost, because people don't plan. People don't plan their shopping. Yeah, you go shop. Sometimes, this is ladies guilty, me guilty as charged. You get into the supermarket and you buy things, then you keep them, and then you start later on and start looking, this is about to expire, or it's expired. You shopped, you have the luxury to waste. Many people may not have, So you shop, you didn't plan, and then sometime at the end of the month, you start removing what is about to expire and throw. So that means you don't plan your shopping. The other thing we can do in our household, even that ugali or that rice that was left from yesterday's meal, there's a way you can transform it into another meal.
Yeah.
So there are recipes that have been developed I don't know, Dennis, if you've ever eaten ugali nachos.
Ugali nachos, actually nice.
You have, yeah. So you see, people need to know that you can actually do something with before you give it to the chicken.
In fact,
there's something you can do with the ugali, come out with something tasty.
Chips.
Yeah, ugali balls. We were last year we were told how you can make ugali balls with cheese inside, and then you fry it, and then it becomes a very tasty snack. Fried rice. You get your leftover rice.
Toss it with some vegetables.
So those are some ways of reducing wastage at the household. And you see, those are not complicated things. It's not rocket science.
And you didn't go buy anything else.
Exactly.
Right.
So we need, that's part of the awareness. Because we need, in fact, this is the thing we keep on saying. As a consumer, as an individual, I can set my own target for reducing my 99 kilos. Can I set a target for me, Jane, to say I'm going to reduce my 99 kilos.
Yes.
I'm not going to serve more food than I need. I'm going to be checking my waste bin in the house to see there's nothing that should be there that shouldn't be there. Yeah. If I can donate to a neighbor or something like that, because if you have a good relationship with the neighbor, it doesn't harm. You cooked excess chapatis, give the askari instead of things like there's simple actions at individual level that can actually contribute to waste reduction at the household at individual level.
And even while we talk about that, you realize most of Kenyan households, we just cook so we can eat. We never think of the kind of nutrition that we need in terms of the portion that we're supposed to have. How does my plate look like? Is it more green? Is it so white? How does it look like? Is it appealing to the eye? Nutritionist will tell you the more colorful it is, the better.
You have all the colors of the rainbow.
Yes, But then again, at these conversations we have in terms of daktari, that in our households we understand nutrition, the portions that you're supposed to have, because once I understand the portions, I will cook according to my needs and not do excess. Because most of the time, I've been guilty of that. You go to a supermarket, you buy full chicken, you get home, you dice them, you cook an entire chicken, and you're just two people in the house. Before you realize, you're overwhelmed by all this chicken that you're forced to. You'll give it out to someone else, right? Or throw it. But if one understood the portions that you need, if you buy full chicken, perhaps when you're dicing it, you dice it to the portions so that when you cook it, you cook only what you need. Or you cook the entire thing and store it for a future date. And these conversations that we're having,
we need to have them more often. I often see people, they serve and the motive or the thought in their mind is, if this food is sweet, I should serve more. Your stomach is virtually the same. There is a limit to expansion of your stomach. So people serve more food because it's sweet, and then they end up not being able to complete. So they estimate what their stomach can accommodate by the fact that the food is sweet. But by this time, I remember when I was young, my mom had taught us how to cook and even how to portion what we need to eat. And we grew up with that. So I think at this point, at the home level, we should know how much we eat and ration or portion our food according to our needs. And if in case we cook excess, we can resort to keeping the rest, preserving them for later use, rather than throwing. Some people just throw because they can afford. I think it's not a good practice from a stewardship point of view, even from a moral sense of view. In urban areas, the environmental burden of food waste is greater than in the rural areas. We have many families that dispose of food in this manner. In urban areas, not most of us keep livestock. So it's not like in the village that you say, this food, now that it's gone bad, I can give it to my chicken or to my dog, to my cat. In urban areas, you will throw this in the dustbin, which will end up in the dump site, which will be now an environmental burden in our urban areas. So the footprint of food loss and waste in urban areas is bound to be heavier or more greater than it would be in the rural areas. So by being proactive in reducing food waste and loss, then we also remit that environmental impact.
Are people having the conversations, not people in boardrooms or offices? Are people actually having these conversations? Because I think I'm going to end this. We will, as we come to the end of the conversation, I'll still be conflicted that we can have two extreme conditions in the same country, and are we not looking at the minority of the population as those who are wasting food? Because it would seem as though the majority of the population are those who are on the short end of the stick, who don't have it to waste in the first place.
It's true, yeah. So that is right. That's why I said some of us, they're called the middle class, and the other, they have the luxury to waste food. It doesn't pain you to toss that whatever. You bought a lot of tomatoes and pick some like they're rotting and throw them. You see, you have the luxury of wasting. But you see, we need to have this conversation where we say that even if you have the luxury of wasting, it affects all of us. because that food you're tossing ends up in the landfills. And you say that food waste contributes to greenhouse gases. I know, forget what the other stories, but let us, the majority are converted, that we are having climate change. And so that food that you toss ends up in the landfill, contributes to the greenhouse gases. So ultimately it still affects all of us. So action is collective. While you have the luxury to waste, the impact affects all of us. So we must all do, our part. Okay, so that's why we say, even though I forgot to mention the figures. Globally, more than 800 million people are hungry. That is the global figure. In Kenya, more than 5 million people are hungry. Yeah. So while at the same time, like you said, we are throwing away food. So it's a moral issue that we should all tackle. I can quote what the late Pope Francis said, that the moment you toss food, you literally take it away from the plate of the poor. That's a very popular statement that was made by Pope Francis about food loss and waste, that when you're throwing the food in your dustbin, remember, you're literally taking it away from the plate of the poor. So that is a moral issue. Food is a moral issue. So like you said, even if you have the luxury of wasting, you also have a moral obligation to actually do something better about it. Like you said, if you have food in the house that you think it might be going to waste, or you're a farmer and you have excess, there's now a system which we are developing. I think we have now come up, the guidelines we're developing for food redistribution, because we didn't have that to do. Now I think the process is being led by the RETRAC, which is one of our partners, to come up with guidelines to help redistribute, because we need an incentive and sanction. So that when a supermarket like, say, Naivas has excess, have you seen sometimes they have their daily, sometimes at the end of the day there could be some excess food, they would love to donate, but there are liabilities to donation. So we have recently been working on guidelines
like what?
Liabilities, because somebody might take that food and not transport it properly, say, and then he reaches home and they get food poison, and they say it is the food I got from the deli at Naivas or from some restaurant. So most of these establishments are afraid to donate food because of those liabilities. But now RETRAC, supported by APHRC and other partners, have come up with guidelines which will help in food redistribution. So Naivas can now donate excess food and not be because if somebody doesn't use the food donated properly, it now become liabilities not on Naivas. So those are some of the structures that need to be put in place to help people. Like you said, it is a paradox that in a country where 5 million are without food, 30% of the food is going to waste. So that is what we need to do. Systems, guidelines, policies that will enhance food redistribution, reduce food loss and waste, and have a positive a contribution on food and nutrition security.
And we know that some of these things are possible, even as we come to a closing remark. We know that there's a girl who, maybe she's a young lady now, but she set up a factory and all she does is collect the mangoes that fall to the ground during mango season in Baringo and Ukambani. That's all she does. She's not asking for the stuff that's coming off the tree that you're going to sell. She's waiting for what's going to fall to the ground. She's waiting for what's going to fall off the truck. And she's drying mango and she's using the pulp and she's making juice. She is doing this.
Nice.
So if she can do it, governments can.
Governments can, sure,
Yes.
Yeah.
And I wanted to add that in our social media messages, we are trying to pass across that, tell somebody about food loss and waste and tell them how they can contribute to its reduction. And then we're asking, what are you doing to reduce your food loss and waste footprint? It's a collective action.
It's a collective action.
You and I must do something.
Yeah.
Stopping
And one of the things we just to add to what you're saying, we call ourselves the food waste pests. When you sit in a buffet, do not allow your neighbor who served themselves to leave food on the plate. Right?
I said to finish your food.
Yes, because you served it yourself, so you don't get to leave it on the plate.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you don't, like Franklin say, you don't use your mind to serve. And I'll say it looks sweet, so I'm going to heap on the plate, and then you're going to leave it. So we have said that one of the individual, apart from yourself reducing your individual waste, when you are with people, especially on buffet, do not allow people to waste food that they served themselves. You they need to finish, because nobody served you. You served yourself.
Indeed.
Fact,
So that is individual action.
Sweetness of food stops at the tongue. The stomach does not know that the food is sweet or not.
We've had a conversation around food and food loss and waste coming up to the International Day of Awareness of Food Loss and Waste, which is on the 29th of September. Not today. It's on the 29th, which is next
Monday.
week, but it's Monday.
Yes.
But we're taking a lot of these things into consideration as a run-up to the activities for the day. But beyond that, to be very aware of what happens in our world and in the spaces in which we operate in. And we're hoping that the next time we have a conversation like this, this is what has been done and established, and not just what we're looking at. Professor Jane Ambuko is a horticulturalist and a post-harvest specialist, University of Nairobi, joined by Dr. Franklin Otiende, who's a senior lecturer, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University of Science and Technology, and a research Afri-Food Links project as well. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Good morning.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.